day. And for this last reflection of the retreat, we're going to talk about the mystic of knock. So I'm going to start with the reading of the words from Hebrews 2:1. And it says, "So we must pay the closest attention to the preaching we heard, lest we drift away. If words spoken to angels became law, and all disobedience or neglect received its due reward, how could we now escape if we neglect such powerful salvation? For the Lord himself announced it first, and it was later confirmed by those who heard it. God confirmed their testimony by signs, wonders, and miracles of every kind, especially by the gifts of the Holy Spirit that he distributes according to his will. The angels were not given dominion over the new world of which we are speaking. Instead, someone declared in a scripture, 'What is man that you should be mindful of him? What is the Son of Man that you should care for him? For a while you placed him a little lower than the angels, but you crowned him with glory and honor. You have given him dominion over all things.' When it is said that God gave him dominion over all things, nothing is excluded. As it is, we do not yet see his dominion over all things. But Jesus, who suffered death and for a little while was placed lower than the angels, has been crowned with honor and glory. For the merciful plan of God demanded that he experience death on behalf of everyone. God, from whom all come and by whom all things exist, wanted to bring many children to glory, and he thought it fitting to make perfect through suffering the initiator of their salvation. So he who gives and those who receive holiness are one. He himself is not ashamed of calling us brothers and sisters, as we read, 'Lord, I will proclaim your name to my brothers. I will praise you in the congregation.' He also says, 'I will trust in God. Here I am and the children God has given me.' And because all those children share one same nature of flesh and blood, Jesus likewise had to share this nature. This is why his death destroyed the one holding the power of death, that is, the devil, and freed those who remain in bondage all their lifetime because of the fear of death. Jesus came to take by the hand not the angels, but the human race. So he had to be like his brothers and sisters in every respect, in order to be the high priest faithful to God and merciful to them. A priest able to ask pardon and atone for their sins. Having been tested through suffering, he is able to help those who are tested." The word of the Lord. So knock, we know, I'm sure that you probably all heard about knock, and probably some of you know a lot. Basically, you know the story is 1879 when it takes place and appears in a mysterious way in a small church after 100 masses that were saved for the holy souls. And those were very difficult times in Ireland. And they were going through all kinds of suffering. And the priest was a very good parish priest and very sensitive to the pain of the people, the suffering. And so the apparition is an apparition that is unique because it has not what we can call a traditional message, no visionaries, not any specific message, so to say, but the message of knock to me is bigger than words. It's very big, and it's like a futuristic message. It's something that people still don't get it yet. We need to be very deep in trouble, and which we get in there fast enough, in order to grasp of what is there. It's something that God gave the church for a time of need. And the suffering of the Irish people during that time was the atonement for the future church. They die of hunger, they die of slavery from English people, and all these terrible things that happened in Ireland to them. They were turned into terrifying slaves and people that were dying of hunger. It's something that it's hard to believe, but it took place. And they were very, very religious people, good Catholics. I'm sure, like everywhere, there are many Catholics that are not as committed, but mainly Irish people were known for being good Catholics, and they had so many vocations and missionaries that went all over the world. So God had an eye on them, but in a very mysterious way, because the apparition takes place, but the apparition didn't bring any bread or didn't bring any solution to their problems, apparently. The apparition brought the grace for the church in the midst of their suffering. God confirming that their suffering wasn't in vain. It's like heaven landing and saying, shh, everything is fine, I'm with you. Keep on suffering and dying of hunger and all of that. That's not going to change, but everything is perfect. You will see when you die. That's basically the message, because nothing changed. And also the clergy actually didn't like the apparition and was not supporting it. The apparition at first was only supported by laity. But there were over 20 witnesses, and even the youngest one, like 9 or 11-year-old, were the most excited about the action of the angels on the altar with the lamb. Because you see, the symbology of the apparition is incredible, because we have the lamb on the altar with angels surrounded. Then Our Lady, which is with the hands like this, praying to the Father, and St. John the Evangelist with the words. You know, he was ordained as a priest in the Last Supper, and he is one of the most efficient apostles chosen by Jesus as a messenger of the Word in a big way. And then St. Joseph. So you see the family of Nazareth, the Holy Family, with the Lamb on the altar, a crucifix with no, just a plain crucifix, a plain cross. See, it doesn't have the crucified Lord, because the Lamb is on the altar. So all of these things are really symbolic and very deep. Is the church, is the Mass, is resurrection, and at the same time, is this message where Our Lady is interceding to God. She's not looking down, she's looking up. And St. John has the Word open, he's giving the Word. St. Joseph's present, as always, his presence is silent and so committed. He's like a faithful servant that is there to help, to serve. But the statement of his presence is a chosen one to be silent and helpful. And that's what St. Joseph is. It's a big honor to be that. And so the church is there. But then the people around, over 20 people that saw that, they were in awe, because that happened in a rainy August night, and everything was dark. You know, imagine those town. There was it is still even a little town, but then it was like a little village. And so you probably imagine in 1870 there was not street lights, you know, so it was dark, and all of a sudden there was all this light in the church, and so they all came around and they saw this apparition. That must have been incredible. It lasted for a while. And as I said, it propagated to the laity, and it was highly persecuted by the church, by the clergy. The priest ended up approving it, the parish priest ended up believing on it, and he was persecuted by all his fellow priests. You know, they hated him for that, and they really persecuted him. So the apparition really had a very difficult time. It was not accepted. And even today, there are problems. I travel to Ireland in missions, and sometimes you meet priests in some of the churches in Ireland, and they really don't have like any passion for knock. You know, some do, but it's not very common to find a passion for knock. See, as it should be, you know, but it's not. But there is a reason for that. I give you an example of apparitions. There is an apparition that took place in Quito, Ecuador, with an advocation of Our Lady that was very old already, Our Lady of Good Success. She's known in the church, that advocation, for centuries before. before she appeared in Quito. But she appeared as Our Lady of Good Success to a Spanish mystic. And she appeared for a long time. She was a grown-up woman, already grown-up nun, but when she appeared the first time to her, but she lived a long life, so she had a mystical experience that lasted, I don't know exactly how many years, but I think it's at least 30 or 40 years, something like that. And Our Lady will speak to her practically every day during the prayers of the community. And many revelations, so many prophecies. But everything that was revealed to her was to take place 500 years later. So that apparition wasn't going to be known or popular until 500 years later. Imagine how mysterious that is. So God was working on that particular message and using this mystic that suffered so much. Some of the local vocations, nuns that they found in Ecuador, because the convent was founded by 5 Spanish nuns that were sent by the King of Spain to found the first convent in the new kingdom of Granada that was known then in South America, of the Conceptions. And so when they founded the convent, they began to have local vocations. And some of the local nuns turned to be really bad ones. So they turned against the Mother Superior and against the Spanish nuns. And in those years, they used to have prisons in the convents. And then they would lock the Mother Superior up and put her in prison. Imagine, in her own convent, because of permission with the bishop, because they will slander her with the bishop and create all these incredible stories against her. So she was persecuted for a long time. And I visit them once a year when I'm missing in there. And I have seen the 5 uncorrupted bodies of the 5 nuns that founded. So it's very holy nuns, and it's a beautiful place. And the promise of Our Lady was that that convent was going to be there until the end of time. And nobody was going to be able to touch it. And that a lot of Mason governments have been through Ecuador wanting to take over the convent because it's right on the main square of the city. And it's very appropriate to build a parking lot for the presidential palace or for the president's service. So they have tried, through the centuries, to take it over. They haven't been able. And they are just 20 or 25 average nuns that are mainly very humble people, and that's all they are. And these powerful people haven't been able to take over the convent. One time a president, a Mason, really bad, evil one, sent a messenger to the nuns and said, by tomorrow you should be out. I am transferring you to a place in the countryside, about 5 hours from Quito, and I'm going to take over the convent. If not, I will come personally and chop you to pieces. That was the message. So he went away to his farm during that weekend, and on Saturday evening, he was chopped to pieces by one of his servants in the farm. Imagine. And I can tell you 100 stories like that. Of every time they try to take over the convent and destroy those nuns and eat them or kill them, because they tried to kill them many times and burn the convent because of a lot of an old Masonic tradition or government there in Ecuador. At the same time, the country is consecrated to the Sacred Heart, and one president that was very holy, the one that consecrated the country to the Sacred Heart, was killed right on the square in front of the palace with a machete, killed by the Masons. And so he's also a very holy person, he was. I'm speaking about this because it's a parallel to Knock in the sense that Knock is a futuristic apparition. When I went to Knock the first time in 2002, I was taken there by an Irish lady that lives in Canada, and she took me there. And I went there, and to tell you the truth, the first impression I had, because I had been in other shrines and I was just new in the church. My missionary life was only just a few years, and just like 5 years conversion. So I didn't know much about a lot of the things that you should know as a Catholic. And I got there and I didn't know what to make of it. See, there was, I knew about Fatima, I knew about Lourdes, or I knew about Guadalupe in Mexico, and they sort of had some kind of pattern where you could tell the apparition had like an order, visionaries, messages, things like that. And this one was totally different, and I could see there was not a big excitement there from the locals, or there were not big pilgrimages like they are in the other shrines, and yet such an old apparition and approved by the church. So you wonder, what's going on. So that was my first impression. I came back the next year, and then an elderly lady was the one that brought me that time. A few people, different people, but this elderly lady was the one that was going to take me to the west of Ireland. She was to meet me in Knock. I got there to Knock, and I never seen this lady only through internet. I went there, and when I got to Knock, then that time I began to have experiences that were not normal, so to say, because I realized there was something there very powerful with the Holy Souls. Obviously, you know that the apparition took place after the priest celebrated 100 masses. So when he just finished the last mass, that was the day of the apparition. And so at that second time, I realized there was something going on with the Holy Souls there, very strongly. So I understood that the suffering of the souls and the suffering of the Irish people was united by God in the apparition, and made out of that a grace for the church. So this communion between the suffering Irish people and the suffering souls, through the intercession of the priest that actually becomes Jesus, right, in the altar. So it turned that into bread for the future. See, it is food for the future generations. So the starving Irish people that were physically starving, that had these problems of survival, that were just a temporary pain and suffering, is the atonement and preparation for the future church that is going to be starving spiritually. So there's going to be spiritual famines in the world very soon. We're beginning to have them already in some countries and some places around the world, where the apostasy is big, where Christianity is practically pushed aside and ignored. Sometimes you hear news from Spain, for example, where Catholics are filing lawsuits and also legal orders to parish priests to erase them from the baptismal books. See, they don't want to know anything about the Catholic Church. They want to be erased from the church. Them and their ancestors. They want them all out of the books. Imagine that. I mean, that's an incredible apostasy. And it's very common nowadays that these things happen. We don't know about them because you have to meet the priest that has been through that. And then they will tell you. And there is a movement, there are websites where they tell you should erase your names from the books, and they promote that. It's just incredible. So these kind of famines are coming up in the church. And Knock was chosen by God to provide this strength to the future church. I think that probably this apparition is going to begin to be very, very known very soon, within the next 10 years or so. The Catholics are going to find out what that really is, and why is it so mysterious and so silent and so unknown. Because in this side of the world, it's probably a little known. But if you go to America, Asia, the Middle East, they have no idea what Knock is about. Nobody ever heard about Knock. They don't know. Nobody knows. Even in the Vatican, even in Rome, when you speak to a lot of priests, Italian priests, all over Italy, like I've been, and I spoke to people in so many countries in Europe, and they have no idea. See, I've been all over Croatia, for example, in missions, and I asked them about, no, they don't know, they never heard about Knock. So, and you see, it's a very very important apparition. Ireland has been a very important country in the church, see, because of the history they have of missionaries and also the faith in general. A very good Catholic country. So you will think that everything that takes place there in such magnitude as an apparition will be known, because it's not just an ordinary country that has some Catholics in there. It was at a time a 100% Catholic country that provided so many vocations for so many years. And even during the dark times, dark ages, remember, it was the Irish monks that saved the church and guarded the Gospels and everything there. So lots of history. History that will become very important and very powerful with time, not now. So my mystical experiences in Knock are all related to the Holy Souls. The first one I can share with you has to do with my younger brother. I was very concerned about my younger brother because he died in the ocean. He used to race sailboats, and he crashed in the ocean, died, and his body was not found. And he died in mortal sins. He was not in a good life. At that time, all of us were lost. So I went there with some groups of people that were experts trying to find his body. All we found was a watch that he had that was a watch that will not rot, will not corrode. You know, it's one of those aluminum or something. So when we found the watch, they said, that's it. The fish ate the body already, so that's the only thing left. So it was a proof that he sank there, and he actually was eaten by the animals, right? There was no way we could find him, ever. And so I was very concerned about his soul. And when I got to one of those trips to Knock, I noticed they were having masses said for the souls there. So I had one said for my brother, and as I walked out, there's a statue of Saint Teresa of the Little Flower outside. And Saint Teresa of the Little Flower obviously is the patron saint of mission and missionaries, but it's also it's our patron saint of the mission. So I went there and asked her to intercede for me, so that God will show me somehow about my brother. And I forgot. I left. Forgot all about it. And went to Portugal. I was in an island of Portugal called Madeira and Funchal. And it was a few weeks later. And one morning before I woke up, I found myself walking on a very, very narrow path on a mountain, walking down. And in front of me was my younger brother. And he was narrating to me my own mystical experience, as if he had that experience with God. And I was all attentive. And at the end, there was a curve, and he turned the curve, and I didn't see him. So I said, but that is the same thing that happened to me. And then I realized, but he's dead, like I realized he was dead. So I turned, and he was sitting against the mountain with lots of light. It's not like he was in heaven, but he was in the light. So I was really stunned to see that, and then I woke up. See, there was a very clear message of what was happening with him. At least I knew he was saved. And that was the way that the whole thing manifested to me. And immediately, my whole visit to Knock appeared in that moment in my heart, and I realized there was something going on there, very powerful with the Holy Souls in Knock. And then the next time I went, this is already 2004, I think, because after that I have been there every year, with the exception of last year, but every year. And so I went there 2004, and in 2004 what happened is I was there at 3 o'clock. I think it was a Monday, and it's the time when they do masses for the sick and for the souls. So I was there for that mass, and during the mass, I met the person that was going to lead me through this mission there in that area, and went into the mass. And as I was walking into the church, I began to notice a lot of changes in me, a lot of things that usually are like the warning that something very supernatural is taking place in me, in my life, So I was cautious about it, And I went there to one of the front rows because the place is kind of circular. And I was there, and the altar is like in the center. And this elderly priest paraded from the sacristy with his elderly acolytes, and everybody was really old. And all these old sick people there that came for the healing, very few young people, maybe 2 or 3. I was probably one of the youngest. And so I'm there, and when this procession comes out of the sacristy, I begin to see that things were moving. See, supernatural things were moving. And so I noticed this incredible presence of souls. And they were all related to us that were there in the Mass. All related to us. And at the same time, I noticed how this priest, when he was a very old priest, but very knowledgeable and appeared to be very holy, and he was treating the whole thing, the whole ceremony, very incredibly sacredly. And so I was very touched by that, because usually nowadays it's not easy to find priests that really are venerable, that are cautious with the treating the liturgy. Most of them are loose, most of them they don't seem to be paying importance to it. So this priest was very holy in that sense. And at the same time, I begin to see this tenderness of the priest, this delicacy, how it was turning into a spiritual experience that was beyond what you could see. It was more than that. Then all of a sudden, all of this scenario of the Mass and the us present became like almost as if you were inside an aquarium, with water, and people are floating like this, because you are like in a space where you have no gravity, so you're kind of floating in a water, something like that. It was almost like a vapor, we were within a vapor, something like that. And it was sort of misty and also sort of cool, not cold, but cool. And that was the way I felt, to the point where I was almost feeling like maybe I should just walk out, because it's just like you feel something is going to happen. What if I shock or drown or something? That kind of a human fear. There was a human fear, but there was beyond that. So only, regardless of how deep a mystical experience could be, you are afraid. See, there's no way you can get away from fear, because your mortal body is always thinking it's going to die in the midst of the experience. Though everything is taken care of, but you're going like, I think I better go out. So all of these things are happening. Then when that was taken care of, I was saying, I'm going insane. So that's the other part. That's another part, right? Yeah. Going, oh no, I lost it. And then I was afraid, what if when they call people to go to be anointed, and I wanted, because I have a heart condition, I said, I gotta go there and get a prayer, get some blessing. And I said, what if I go there and then something really weird happened to me, because then you feel you're possessed or something. All these doubts come in. You probably know the enemy doing that. But no, this continual, and I continue being in this mist, and all these vapors or whatever you can describe it. I don't know how to describe it physically. But anyways, I was there in the midst of that. And this coolness became like a breeze. So every time the priest would move his hand, everything will move like this. Almost like and then you probably imagine what happened. Every prayer was setting up this whole setup, or the mist and all of this, was setting it up in a different dimension every time. So it was getting more and more complicated. But I was digesting everything perfectly spiritually. Just humanly, it was overwhelming, humanly. Because it was beyond my imagination, beyond my rational mind, beyond my senses, everything. So that part is very difficult to handle, because I'm awake. It's not like I'm in a dream or anything, I'm totally awake. So I'm there, and at that time, when these things begin to become so intense, I feel more and more like running out. See, but the lady that is with me there is the lady that brought me to the mission in that size. I said, if I do this, I'm going to look really bad with this woman, right? So I have to stay there, like holding it. So I held it all the way through the Mass, but the Mass was very difficult in that sense, to stay there and go through this. And as the priest was going through the liturgy, so you become, everything was more, it was deeper and more incredibly large, and I was able to understand the word and what it was, the effect of the word when it was read. And then the word leading to the altar, to the sacrifice, all of that was gigantic, incredibly gigantic. But in the midst of all of this, all of the time, there was this liturgy going on with the souls, with the holy souls. All the time was like this. I don't know, I mean, I never seen that in a regular Mass anywhere else. So I wouldn't be able to tell, because usually you know that every Mass involves souls, every Mass. And there are Masses, there are souls going up to heaven after every single Mass. So, but in this particular case of Knock, this apparition is totally related to Mass, to souls. And it's a futuristic apparition in the sense that a lot of pilgrims in the future are going to be fed there in a mystical way, because this is like a fountain of strength from God that is there already. Obviously, if you go now, you will be strengthened in that sense. You probably, that is not the place to straighten up a broken leg or to, you know what I mean? Maybe you can heal from your body, but that's not exactly that. It's like Fatima. See, Lourdes is a place where it's very popular to get physical healings in Lourdes from disease and things like that. Fatima has its shares of healings too, but mainly Fatima is an incredible experience of prayer. See, and Fatima is what we can call a wealth of religion. It's very powerful in prayer. And the message of Fatima is so rich, because it's a teaching of God as to exactly what we have to do, what can happen to us if we don't do it, and where humanity is at. That's the message of Fatima. But it's prayer, it's very important. The angel comes and teaches the shepherds to pray and tell them what to say, when to say it, how to prepare themselves to see it, to receive Our Lady, and all these details about prayer. And so every apparition has its charisma. In Knock, the charisma of Knock is this incredible silence. All these witnesses that see all of that, and they don't know what is heaven telling us. Why are they appearing like that and not saying a word to us? And how can we read these symbols? See, in the Celtic traditions, they do circles around things. So the way the circle churches is with the rosary, the stations of the rosary, or the stations of the cross. And that was a way to teach the Bible to people that were illiterate or people that were not very educated. So they will teach the Bible by having the stations of the cross and the stations of the rosary. That way they teach them the mysteries, see the incarnation, the resurrection, all the mysteries of the gospel. And so it's a tradition to teach people, humble and simple people, how to go about the understanding of the scriptures in a very simple way. So Knock has that. And originally was done also from the very beginning because the people around were very humble. So that was one way to keep them close to the scriptures and close to the catechism, so to say. But then again, for today's people, that basically is very easy to find that minimum everyone today has elementary school. See, and if not, you can get it in internet. So today it's not very common to find illiterate people. Sometimes you do, but most of the time when you do, somehow they have mental problems or they are very lazy people or something like that, because it's not normal. Though I'm sure there are isolated cases. But so because of that, today is the time when this particular spiritual famine is going to come on and become very strong, where people are going to be so dry spiritually that they are not going to be able to be conquered by the words. They can't hear it. It's like so dry because of the materialism. People are so involved in this consumerism that they are deaf, completely deaf to the Spirit. And Christians that have to work in the mission and evangelizing people are going to have a very hard time because people are not listening, they are deaf. The message won't get across, and this is going to be tough. That's what we can call a spiritual famine. See, where people are starving and they don't seem to get it. They don't see, no matter how much they try, they just don't feel anything. They just can't go back to prayer. They just don't feel like going to a mass. They don't have it in them. It's like when you lose your friendship with somebody. Regardless of how much you push yourself to go back to that person, you can't. Because you don't have that friendship anymore. So you try to push yourself. Something has to happen in order to revive that. See, it's the spirit that is lost. It's the spirit that is gone. So for us to get the spirit back, then knock comes in. See, that's going to be a place where you can take people and just dip them in there and bring them into this mist that I saw and pull them out, and then they will be sensible to the spirit. Today, when you go to apparitions like Medjugorje, and I'm sure probably most of you know about it, one of the things I noticed there always is that it is a gift of peace. That's why it is Our Lady of Peace. And why peace? Because peace can be understood in many ways. But in this kind of peace is the peace that will lead you into an illumination of conscience. Because we live in a world that has no peace. There's no peace in this world. It is a noisy world. It's a busy world. It's a world that is so hyperactive that hardly anyone has peace. And people don't know about peace. Most people have never had peace in their lives. They don't even know what peace is because they don't have it. They never had it. They never had a minute of silence, or they never had peace. So when someone goes to a place like that, all of a sudden, for the first time in their lives, they have a true sense of world peace. So what happens when you have that peace? For the first time, you're able to think clearly about life, God, everything like that you never were able to do. And that's why you have like an illumination of your conscience. And a lot of conversions come out of that. People that were not sensitive to God, all of a sudden they become sensitive. Just because they went there. See, so the apparitions of Our Lady is like a column of light that comes down from heaven and stays there on earth. So everyone that goes through there will never be the same person. See, you will be changed. So you probably will not notice it right away, but it will take place in your heart, in your life, because it's already done. You've been there, you have been touched. A lot of people go to shrines and apparitions like that, they come out of there and say, I didn't feel anything. It was the same like going anywhere. I don't know. That they can mumble for a long time, But what they don't know is that it is just like knock that is going to take place later. See, a lot of things that happen to us mystically, through faith, they take place later. Same thing in the opposite direction, in the dark. I'll give you an example. A child, 10 years old, plays with a Ouija board. And don't make much about that. It's just a game. So 20 years later, at age 30, all of a sudden that young person begins to have voices in the head. Voices. And then they take him to the psychiatrist, and then they diagnose him as schizophrenic. See, that's the fastest way to get away with anything, because what is a schizophrenic? It's something they don't exactly know what it is, but it's a schizophrenic, right? So it's got all kinds of things going on. The mind is all over the place, the emotions all over the place, everything is just out of place. So it's a schizophrenic. And so, but the person is actually not a schizophrenic. That person is almost possessed, someone that is oppressed, minimum obsessed with the spirits that came into the Ouija board. See, the Ouija board is one of the most dangerous games that there is, because it's channeling, the spiritualism, and there are a lot of people in mental hospitals because of the Ouija board. And the most typical patient is the one that has all these multiple personalities, all these voices. Most of them have lots of spirits, with some exceptions. Obviously, there are some people that are mentally ill and the origin of their disease is not spiritual. But a lot of people that have this condition comes from games they play when they were very little, and then it just creeps in 20 years later. Because you see, spirits are not confined to time and space. So our life to the spiritual world is an instant in eternity. Our life is nothing for a spirit. So people think, how can they guard your life? Well, I mean, they're going to be there with us all the time watching all of this. No, our life is an instant. See, an instant in eternity. Because they are not within time, they are outside time. So that's why these things can happen on the opposite direction too. But on this side of the light where we are, a lot of blessings that we get, they are not going to take place right away. They will activate later. And sometimes they will activate at the moment of dying. You notice, a lot of people pray for their relatives. And they say, oh, when is my son coming into the faith? When is my mother coming into the faith? Who knows? Everyone has one somewhere. But what happens, and we don't see the results of our prayers. See, we pray and pray and pray for the conversion of the loved ones. We don't see the results. The problem is that we are confined to time. But the prayers are not confined to time. Prayers are eternal. Prayers are within the eternal presence of God. And God listens to all the prayers, and He will use them eternally, not temporarily. Because most of the temporary benefits we get are useless. Most of them. So God will not use them for that. He will use them for what is real, what is going to stay. So for your eternal gifts. So a lot of the prayers that you say for the conversion of people are probably take place at the moment they die. Because why? These people, a person that was not able to come into the faith during this lifetime, because of whatever, some people are so rational, it's impossible for them to listen to spirit. It doesn't go. But the soul gets it. Their soul gets it. So at the moment of dying, when that person comes out of the body into the fullness of the spiritual realm, at that moment, every single prayer that was given to that person, all of that becomes light. So that person has a spot of light to stand on. See, and is able to go like, whoa, and see the truth, and instead say, mercy. Is able to ask for forgiveness, see, from God, and be saved at that moment. So I'm sure that person has to go through a very difficult purgatory, because you will have to start from zero, the school of Christ, right from zero. Because never learned about love, the love of God, so you have to learn from zero. Start the school, but still it's saved. It's saved. And he will suffer a lot, because imagine someone that is very intelligent, very educated, and then dies and finds himself on ground zero, as far as learning and all of that. Pride comes up, and it will tear this person apart. And will suffer that soul to let go of pride, to let go of this pretentiousness, to let go of this knowing it all, and finding out that all of that is worthless, all of that is meaningless, that all of these studies and all of that meant nothing for the spiritual world, for eternity. But still, it's not easy for that soul to let go of that just like this. Because, the soul is so attached to the rationality and to what the learning experience that has to work very hard to let it go. That's what purgatory is about. Learning to let go of those attachments. So before the soul begins to learn about the love of God, which is the lesson we are learning here, because we have faith. See, because we have faith, we are already learning the lesson of loving. See, every area of your life right now that you're not treating with love is your big purgatory. You're just building a purgatory right there. It could be a human being, it could be an area of your life where you're not very good at, you're loose, you're too laid back with it, and all of that becomes a purgatory. So that's why we have to watch, and make sure you you nurture all your areas, everyone you know, every person you deal with, everything you deal with, just nurture it with love and compassion and charity, because otherwise you're building a purgatory. It's so simple, you know. Some people are difficult to deal with. So what do? You love them, you forgive them, and try to be as good as you can to them so they don't become your purgatory. Because if you die and that situation remains like that, imagine, why go to a heavy purgatory just because your pride wasn't let go and then you were not able to come to a person that is difficult, to just accept them like they are and give them love. You know, say, don't fight it, you know, just give love to people. And then that's incredible, because they're going to transform them. They're going to go like, wow, he loves me, she loves me. They're going to be in shock. So they want to see that there is love in your heart for them. And then God will reward you. Because that is the only money we have. That love we give, unconditional. Because we know it's good to give. And I'm convinced, I am convinced that if I give love to this person or this situation in my life that is so difficult and so hard to take, then it's going to be easier to carry, and then I'm going to be benefiting people, doing good. So that's what it is all about. So knock is a gift for the future of the church. And even today, in my particular case, I'm writing a book called The Silence of Knock. And this book is all about my experiences there, because I've been having experiences there every time I go. And even from far away. Even sometimes, I was one time in South America, in Argentina, and I was talking about knock. And that day, while I was talking about knock, I had experience of knock there in Argentina. That's like really far away. And I did have an experience of knock while I was talking about knock. So this is an ongoing experience. So knock is a very important place, and I know it's not discovered yet. See, and all the symbols, the symbology of the apparition is so powerful. Every single symbol of the apparition, Our Lady, Saint John the Evangelist, Saint Joseph, the Lamb on the altar with the angels, all of that is incredibly powerful, very big, really big, and it's so simple and silent. So that is God. God is that small, you know, and that's simple in our midst. That's why we miss Him. That's why we don't see Him, because He becomes so simple. So that's what it is. I could share with you lots more, but the time is up, and so this is the best I can do so far. I hope I can finish this book within a year or so, and we'll let you know when I have it, because there's going to be a lot of information there that is mystical. The book is all mystical. It's not exactly about when and how things happen, though that will be in the beginning of the book, but it's mostly mystical experiences related to souls, related to the church in general, universal church, related to other apparitions, related to people in Ireland, the government, related to future economies and things like that. A lot of things are connected to that, because it's in the middle of human history, in the middle of what is taking place in our lives. So it's a prophetic message, very big. So we pray for Knock and pray for the Irish people, so they can really capitalize on that. So that they are the first beneficiaries of Knock, and the ones that are taking the least benefit today, because they are not acknowledging it very bigly. Obviously, the renewed people and the remnant of Irish people in Ireland, they love Knock. See, I usually mission with the remnant of Ireland. So the people I know there are very good Catholics and very holy people. And then they bring their guests, you know, people that need to be converted always. But in general, the people I know are the remnant. So they love Knock. But they are also sad that most Irish people don't care. You know, they don't care about Knock. In Catholics. So we pray for that, and we pray that we also be touched by that, and that we could nourish ourselves with Knock somehow. Some people can be nourished by Knock without even going there, just because you acknowledge it. So I'm going to end by reading the scriptures, and I'm going to read to you from the Exodus, and it's called victory over Amalek. When the Israelites were refeeding, the Amalekites came and attacked them. So Moses said to Joshua, "Choose some of our men and go out to fight the Amalekites in the morning. As for me, I will stand with God's staff in my hand at the top of the hill." Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses had directed, while Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. It happened that when Moses raised his hands, the Israelites will win, but when he lowered them, the Amalekites will have the advantage. The word of the Lord. So it's amazing how God works in such mysterious ways. I mean, these passages of Moses lifting his arms and then they're winning, and then when the arms were down, they were losing. Something so incredible. But that's exactly the gifts we have. We have powerful gifts from God, and they are so little, so simple, so basic, that we don't get them because of that. Sometimes you kneel at home, you're on your knees in a desperate moment of your life, and you raise your arms to heaven, and you tell God, "This is it for me. You have to do something right now in my life, because this is it." And most of the time He will do it right away, because you need to really go deep into this, and really take a decision, make it real, and go on your knees and talk to God from the bottom of your heart, and go for it. And this is the way it works, that's how the prophets will do it with God. They will go on their knees and plead and say, "You have to help me. You have to change this." And God will do it. See, sometimes He won't, but most of the time He will. He will do it and follow. So this is powerful, and we have to acknowledge that. And know that God is alive, God is good, God will give us and grant us things, even sometimes our decisions are not very good, and the Lord still let us do it because He said, "Okay, if that's what you want, let's see what you do with it. I'm going to try to help you as much as I can with that." So He will give it to you. But a lot of the things we ask are not necessarily the best, but sometimes He grants them to us. So it's a way of teaching us. Because then we find out later, no, that's not what I wanted. But that is a teaching anyways. So may the Lord bless you all. We stay together in prayer, united in prayer, and asking God to make us holy, because that is our main goal, to be holy. We don't want to waste time. Everything that we do that is not striving for holiness is a waste of time, really. And it will turn us into mediocre people, If we are not here because we want to be holy, we waste our time. Because what we'll be doing here, just learning things for what, So in that case, it's better to go to school somewhere, or internet is packed with teachings. But this kind of gathering, this kind of pilgrimage, because you came all the way here, is a pilgrimage. This is a sacred place because it's St. Padre Pio's shrine, national shrine. So he has a lot of blessings and gifts because of coming here. So to start with, it's a great pilgrimage. And secondly, because you are looking for something, and what are you looking for? Holiness. See, so may the Lord give you that, and may you strive for holiness all the time, and be anointed and enlightened, inspired to inspire others, which is our duty. Our mission is to be a good testimony. And the testimony can only speak when you're really transforming yourself by faith. So when you're really changing, and you can tell people a very simple testimony of your life and say, "Listen, I'm a wreck, but I'm working on my soul, and I'm trying to become a better human being all the time." Amen. That's it. Thank you.